it goes back to the issue of fandom and what we expect from comic books. There are days when I think, I'll even agree. I think we're a little harsh on creators and how we might take them to task. But on the other hand, too, we're not talking about rocket science. We're not asking people to give us, a cure to some terrible disease or to, solve the, world problems. We're just looking for good comic book stories, and we want stories that are fun. And
you want new comic book stories.
New comic book
I mean,
stories.
I understand every story has already been told, but you can still put something new in there. You can put some thought, some effort, some creativity into it.
And I think a big part of it is we need there is going to have to come a time when fanboys and the comic book fans going to have to come to terms with the idea that if they want these characters to have a consistency and a continuity to them, they've got to let them grow and expand. And
that's what the marriage was.
Yeah.
That was the growth of the character of Peter Parker.
But then, Dan Jurgens said once, especially when it's talking about like the wedding of Superman, because when you're dealing with these characters and you hit a certain thing, you do something with them, then you roll up a lot of carpet. Then
right.
Now you can no longer go in a certain
right.
direction with them anymore. One of the most impassioned emails I ever got was from a viewer who said that they've been out of comics for a while. They were getting back into it, but what they were finding a really hard time doing was getting invested in the characters again, because there was nothing being done for the continuity of them, for making the characters seem consistent in the other books and the shared universes. We've had a lot of viewers talk about that on the boards. I think Inside Man wrote a very, another really good comment on the blog just regarding that. But if you want the characters, if you want this continuity and you want these characters to grow and you want these things to have meaning and merit, then you have to be willing to let go of certain things. So if Spider-Man gets married,
the Marvel continuity is so 1974.
I know it is so out of date.
According to Brian Michael Bendis, because if you didn't know what this quote was from.
See, if you want it to be a case where continuity in comics doesn't really mean anything. As a comic book writer, I can see that argument. I can see where continuity in itself just gets more in the way of telling certain stories because you just have too many restrictions being put on you. So, but the Marvel way has always really been, instead of like rebooting the continuity like DC always does.
The old Marvel way.
The old Marvel way has always been, if there's something going on, you kind of just ignore it. Mm-hmm. Because let's be honest, if you truly follow continuity in comics, a Spider-Man would be 60 by now, 60 years old by now.
Well, there was, I don't know, there actually was an official timeline when Kirby and Lee and Ditko all started in the 60s. Mm-hmm. There was actually a timeline that was telling you how old they were and how much they aged.
And how much years passed, yeah.
Yeah, and then in the 70s, that's when it started changing. Yeah. Things were just getting thrown out the window, and like, we're not going to do this anymore.
Because in a way, you can't. I mean, if you want to keep telling Peter Parker stories, he can't get older. Because then it gets beyond who he is.
But I understand that, but getting back to that, he can't get older, but in order to still be attached to that character and still want to read that character, he needs to grow.
Yeah, well, he needs to grow, but then there gets to a point where he grows beyond what the target audience wants.
Well, all right. I should probably tell you the other reason why I'm just very angry about this is because this annual was one of the first Spider-Man comics I ever bought. Right. I mean, it took place obviously when I first started reading Spider-Man, he was already married, but he had only been married for like a year in reality. Mm-hmm. He'd only been married for a year in the comics. And I went back after buying that Kraven's Last Hunt issues and buying old Spider-Man back issues because they were still pretty cheap. And that wedding annual, I have it. Mm-hmm. It was one of the first Spider-Man comics I ever read. Mm-hmm. It's like, and like everything now that from when I started reading comics, everything's just been a lie. I mean, that's kind of. I mean, if you literally want to talk about it, I mean, everything that I read up until now, and then a lot of people were pissed about that. And I was pissed about that when the Clone Saga came out. Ben Reilly's really Peter Parker, you know, and I was like, I'm fucking lied to all these years. This was supposed to be Peter Parker. Right. Nope. This is the same thing.
And I'll say that I thought when the Clone Saga first started, I thought that was, as a Spider-Man, I actually thought that was very clever.
It was clever.
I thought it was clever.
And then it jumped the shark.
But then it jumped the shark, exactly. And because it was such a clever idea, and it helped sales so much, because Spider-Man sales zoomed at that point, they just ran that thing into the ground. They ran it into the ground.
And now history is repeating itself, because with Brand New Day, Spider-Man sales started going up. Right. Up and up. And now you're jumping the fucking shark. Yeah. And guess who has to come pick up the mess? Dan Slott. Dan Slott's going to be the new monthly. Later this year, I think the Brain Trust still has a few more stories to tell. But then Dan Slott's going to come in. Soul Rider is going to be bi-weekly instead of weekly. Which will be nice to get, see him teaming up with Marcos Martin again. And he has some good writers on there. But, I don't know. I just hope he doesn't deal with any of this bullshit.
Back to the issue of continuity, though. I mean, if he doesn't have to deal with the bullshit, then he's got to ignore it. And then you're going to have folks, again, when you set these things up, and you want the writers to address them, I mean, what do you want? Do you want them to ignore it and act like it never happened because it happened so long ago we don't care anymore? Or do you want it to be a case where, we've been waiting for some sort of resolution there? There's that balance there that's being struck.
Yeah, and wasn't the whole, the whole thing when Quesada came out and had a problem with the wedding, it's like, well, guess what? There is another Spider-Man book out on the rack where he's still a fucking teenager. Yeah. He's not anywhere close to being married.
And he's never going to be an adult either. That kid's going to be
so I didn't see what the problem was.
I don't know. No, you're right, but that's...
you had Spider-Man Marvel Adventures, you had Ultimate Spider-Man, which was, a new continuity Spider-Man for all the new readers. You got your Spider-Man as a kid again. Why the fuck, with the normal Amazing Spider-Man book, I just didn't understand that.
Well, it's because you wanted to boost the sales of Amazing Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man was selling more than Amazing Spider-Man. Folks, I mean, am I going to point specifically at the whole issue of Peter Parker being married as the reason why the Spider-Man doesn't sell? I can't say that is. I can say that if you have...
So Spider-Man books haven't... Amazing Spider-Man and Web of Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Spider-Man, those didn't sell for 25 years? Is that what you're saying?
That the book... That the purpose of this whole thing was to make Amazing Spider-Man the flagship book of the Marvel Universe.
But now there's 5 Spider-Man titles again.
I know. I'm just saying that was the purpose in the beginning. And I will submit to you that if you want Amazing Spider-Man to be your flagship book... Then you know what you do? You get your guy who is known as your top flight Spider-Man writer, namely Brian Bendis, to write the book. He's using Spider-Man in the Avengers books all the time.
That makes the Ultimate Spider-Man completely derivative, and not that it's not already.
No, but that's all I'm saying. You want to make your top flight book. How do you make a top flight flagship book? You get your top name, your top artist, you put them on that book, bam, there it is. Mm-hmm. I appreciate the formula that they wanted to use with the Spider-Man books, but again, the cows are gone. The door's been open. Those cows are even cheeseburgers by now. I don't even know why we're going back to this. Going forward from here on out, though, fanboys have to decide, what do you want? Do you want continuity that kind of hamstrings the writers and the creative teams, and they can't tell all the stories that they'd like to?
Well, it just makes... I think if you're, again, going back to putting Bendis in a box and stuff like that, it forces creativity out of you.
It does.
I think it really does.
To an extent, yes. To an extent, it does.
And I just think people just got lazy. Can't tell any more good stories anymore because he's married.
Yeah, I know. And I think, if anything,
That's just an excuse, a lazy fucking excuse.
No, you're right. What's backfired is that none of these stories that they've told so far could have been done with...
The only things that you couldn't do when it has Peter Parker banging a different chick in every issue. Yeah. That's the only thing that you really couldn't do.
Yeah. Which the old Peter Parker, I mean, even the whole thing with Peter Parker, I don't understand, then, why couldn't Peter Parker have kids with Gwen Stacy and yet he can have sex with all these other girls. I don't understand that.
Because Gwen, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because it's not that Gwen could have been untouchable.
Because she
had sex with Harry Osborn.
So,
or Norman Osborn.
Norman Osborn. Which is even it's just completely why even use that element of the story? Why? That's a whole nother.
Which I know a lot of folks blame Straczynski for, and it's not the case.
That's not the case. Joe Quesada mandated that.
Yeah, it couldn't be Peter Parker. That those kids that Gwen Stacy had were supposed to be Peter's kids.
Right.
And that they were saying
Sins Past, the very famous, terrible Amazing Spider-Man storyline.
So there seems to be all this kind of editorial mandate that you talk about that is always contradicting itself. It's contradicting itself.
Again, if they had good editors, maybe they could fix that shit. But when your editor-in-chief is the one pulling this stupid shit, what's going to force anybody else to step up?
Yeah, I still don't get the smoking thing. I just don't get the smoking thing. It just
we talked about this.
I know. No, I'm just saying we have talked about it. I know the reasons why.
It's personal politics.
And I just don't. I get it, but I don't get it. It just seems kind of ridiculous. But you can
have Spider-Man. Yeah, you can have Spider-Man getting completely wasted and drunk at a wedding, and then sleeping with
If you really think that comic books will influence kids to start smoking, okay? If you think that they have that kind of influence, then you won't let the villains do a lot of the stuff that they do too. If you're afraid that comic books are going to give kids certain ideas,
overt misogyny, that's all right in Marvel Comics, but smoking, no.
Premarital sex is fine. Again, throwing babies out windows is fine. Things, all that kind of stuff is just, I don't know. I'm just confused.
Mutant
genocide, yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
It can be portrayed, I guess. I'm just saying, if you portray it if you're saying that by portraying it in a comic, it means that kids will do it, then there's a lot of stuff portrayed in comics that you really don't want.
I fucking grew up on Nick Fury and Wolverine smoking in every fucking issue. That turned out fine.
That's right. I've never seen Wolverine. Oh yeah, okay. You don't have a problem with Wolverine drinking beer
every issue. Yeah,
but kids are gonna be drinking beer. You want underage drinking?
I was just thinking of that right when I said that. I'm like, he drinks beer like in every fucking issue of Avengers.
Yeah. So that's fine. That's fine. You want kids drinking underage? No, smoking is bad, but underage drinking is fine. I don't get it.
And you can smoke 5 years before you even drink. So
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Don't go to Marvel for consistency.
No. And this has done nothing for me in my desire to read Spider-Man. It really hasn't.
At least you tried it, though, right?
Yeah, I tried it, and it was just difficult. Really difficult.
Couldn't even get to the whole issue.
Yeah. That's too bad. Well, anyway.
So I'm going to go on record saying that Hot Wire Deep Cut number 1 was 125 times better than this piece of shit right here. Go and buy this comic. Stop buying this comic.
Yeah. Because I've been looking
This comic's pretty good, too.
Yeah. Because I've been looking at the blog, okay? And I'm going to call you guys out on the blog, all right? When Jose posts comics that are shipping for the week, and it's the old, what am I going to get this week? Mm-hmm. Some of y'all out there who complain the most are still buying the mainstream shit, and you're not looking at any of the indie stuff.
And then they complain in their post that they're still buying the mainstream shit,
still buying
but they just can't stop.
They can't, I'm calling y'all out. I mean, I don't buy this. I'm not buying it. In fact, the amount of comic
I'm looking at you, Pobra. You're the one every week. Gotta buy my Amazing Spider-Man. I fucking hate it, but I'm gonna buy it. Every week, dude.
You're complaining about it, but you're still buying it. Which is and I'm telling you right now, they know that. I have seen comments on Joe Quesada's Twitter account and Brian Bendis' Twitter account. They say those very things. They talk about the fans that complain about the books and yet still buy them.
And that's why nothing fucking changes.
Nothing changes. So it's in essence, you're impotent. You're quite impotent, and you can bitch and moan all you want, but guess what? You're still giving them your money. Bitch and moan all you want, you're still giving them your money. It's like if you walk into a restaurant and they give you a piece of shit to eat, and you eat it anyway,
Yeah.
Guess what? You still gave him your money. You know what you do? I don't know any other business where people can get a substandard product and still buy it. They'll complain about it even as they are buying it.
Mm-hmm.
Give me another business. Give me another business where they can do that, where you won't just get up and walk out and say, I'm not buying this. I don't know any other business that will do that. I really don't. Wow, that was kind of a rambling rant, but I think we covered some pretty good stuff there.
That was probably the longest last rant ever.
Yeah, one of the longest. All right, so let's end this on that because this has been a long week. So, again, as always, check out the CCW TV blog. We always put a link to the blog here on the video channel. We've been getting a lot of comments. We actually get more comments on the blog than we do here on the channel, just because we know.
Because everyone hates YouTube.
Yeah, everyone hates the comments. So, come on over. Come on over. There's a lot of other discussion going on the board, as I made reference to weekly postings. We have open threads. DMAR's Sunday Funnies. I posted a DMAR Sunday Funny late today on Sunday. But
every Sunday, though.
More of the faces behind the names on the CCW Nation. But come and check it out and let us know. So, and then you can follow me on Twitter on geektome.com. And if I'm just throwing really quickly out there, I have a bunch of stuff that I did at San Diego. If you want to check out the Geek to Me blog, you can see some of the interviews I did with Bruce Campbell,
Sylvester
Stallone, Nathan Hamill.
Check out this guy.
And Scott Thompson of the Kids in the Hall. You might want to come check it out. Anything else? No? All right.
No. Next week, though, we have 2 Jonathan Mayberry books coming out. We have The End of Doom War #6, and we have the start of Punisher versus the Marvel Universe.
Should be cool.
It looks like we're going to have a Mayberry comic review-a-thon next week. And
pick those books up. Pick them up.
Yes.
All right, so until next time, this has been Elliot Serrano and Jose Melendez coming to you from Dreamland Comics in Schaumburg, Illinois. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Inside Man.